What Keanu Reeves discovered about his driver will shock you. Hollywood's most humble star thought he knew everyone around him. But when he quietly followed Miguel after a long day of filming, he uncovered a heartbreaking truth that changed everything. This incredible story of hidden struggles and unexpected kindness will leave you in tears. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Keanu Reeves had always prided himself on reading people. In an industry where everyone wanted something from him, photos, autographs, favors, or stories to tell their friends, Miguel Alvarez, his driver of 3 years, remained an enigma. While other staff members often filled silence with gossip, chatter, or attempts to impress, Miguel spoke only when necessary. Polite greetings, traffic updates, weather reports, never personal details, never requests, never the forced enthusiasm Keanu had grown used to. What struck Keanu most was what Miguel didn't do. He never asked about movies, never hung around for selfies, never lingered outside premieres hoping for introductions. While other drivers stood in groups outside sound stages, joking and laughing, Miguel sat in his car with a worn paperback novel, occasionally stepping aside for hushed phone calls in Spanish. The first thing that made Keanu truly curious happened one February night. After a grueling martial arts rehearsal for John Wick 4, Miguel held the door open for him. That's when Keanu noticed his hands. Cracked, calloused, scarred. These weren't the hands of someone who only steered wheels. They belonged to someone who had spent years lifting, building, repairing. Miguel, Keanu asked, have you been doing construction work? For a flicker of a second, panic crossed Miguel's face. Then the mask of professionalism returned. Just some side work, Mr. Reeves. Nothing that interferes with my duties. Keanu wanted to press further, but something in Miguel's tone, not defensive, but quietly desperate, made him stop. Instead, he began watching more carefully. At lunchtime on set, Miguel's habits puzzled him. Caterers offered gourmet meals, fresh salads, endless options. Miguel never joined. Instead, he sat in his car eating plain sandwiches wrapped in napkins. When Keanu once pointed out the food was free, Miguel simply nodded. Thank you, sir. I prefer my own. The phone was another clue. In a city where even assistants carried the newest iPhones, Miguel used an ancient model held together with tape. The screen spiderwebbed with cracks, the battery failing constantly. He rushed to charge it with an urgency that suggested the calls were lifelines. And his clothes, always pressed, always spotless, but always the same 2 shirts, their seams showing expert repairs. 3 years of this created an odd dynamic. Keanu, who had met presidents and rock stars, found himself more fascinated by his driver than by any celebrity. Miguel's quiet dignity reminded him of people he'd lost, those who carried unbearable burdens without complaint. The breaking point came one Tuesday. Keanu had been dealing with relentless tabloid chatter about his career. Slumped in the back seat, he muttered, "Sometimes I wonder if any of this is worth it." He hadn't expected a reply. But in the mirror, Miguel's eyes met his. For just a moment, the professional distance melted. "Forgive me, Mr. Reeves," Miguel said softly. "But from where I sit, you've been given a gift that brings joy to millions. The weight is heavy, yes, but some of us carry other weights, and we would gladly trade." It was the most personal thing Miguel had ever said. Then, almost immediately, he apologized. In that instant, Keanu realized Miguel wasn't just reserved. He was protecting something, carrying something that made Hollywood criticism look like nothing. That night, Keanu made a decision that would change both their lives. The next morning, rain swept across Los Angeles. As Miguel navigated traffic, Keanu studied him more intently. The man's face bore exhaustion beyond sleeplessness, dark circles, tense posture, the subtle tremor in his hands. "Miguel," Keanu asked gently as they pulled up to the Warner Brothers lot, "did you sleep well?" Miguel's reply was too quick. "Yes, sir. Thank you for asking." But his trembling hands betrayed him. During filming that day, Keanu's concentration slipped. His mind replayed the small details. Miguel always arriving exactly 15 minutes early, never more, never less, as though juggling a precise schedule. The way he sometimes winced as he stepped out of the car, joints aching from more than just driving. And those tense phone calls, always in hurried Spanish, always away from listening ears. By evening, Keanu couldn't stand it anymore. After wrap, He found his trusted security consultant, Frank Davidson, a former lab detective. "Frank, I need a favor, and it stays between us." "What kind of favor?" "It's about Miguel, my driver. He's been with me 3 years, and I barely know anything about him. But something's wrong. He's exhausted, stressed, hiding it. I want to help. You're asking me to dig into him. Background, finances, family. Nothing invasive. I just want to know if there's a way I can support him." Frank studied him, then nodded. "Give me 48 hours. But Keanu, be prepared. It may be worse than you imagine." Those 2 days dragged. Every ride with Miguel felt heavy, loaded with unspoken questions. Miguel remained professional, but now when their eyes met in the mirror, Keanu thought he saw recognition, as if both men sensed that boundaries were shifting. Thursday evening, Frank called. "Meet me in my office after filming." The look on Frank's face told Keanu everything before he spoke. Files lay spread across the desk. "Sit down. This is heavy." Miguel Alvarez, 42. Mexican-American. 8 years in Los Angeles. Clean record. Former mechanic, now professional driver. References glowing, hard-working, reliable, honest to a fault. Frank paused. He has a daughter, Sophia, 8 years old, born with severe spina bifida and hydrocephalus. Multiple surgeries, ongoing care, prognosis, uncertain. Keanu felt his breath leave him. His wife died in childbirth. Miguel's been raising Sophia alone. His mother, Elena, moved from Mexico to help 3 years ago, right when Miguel started working for you. But last year she had a stroke. She's partially paralyzed, needs daily assistance. Frank slid financial records across the desk. Miguel works 3 jobs. Days with you, nights cleaning office buildings, weekends in construction. His total income barely covers rent in East LA, basic living, and a fraction of the medical bills. The NHS isn't here. Insurance covers basics, but specialized treatments cost thousands monthly. Keanu's chest tightened. Frank continued. His landlord says he's never missed rent, but twice asked for extensions. Construction bosses say he shows up exhausted, but works harder than men half his age. Cleaning supervisors report the same. He works from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., then straight home to care for his mother and daughter before driving you at 9 a.m. He hasn't had a full night's sleep in months. Keanu stood at the window, staring out at the Hollywood skyline that had made him wealthy beyond measure. "And those sandwiches," Frank added quietly, "is not skipping meals by choice. He takes the catering food home every day, tells you he's not hungry, saves it for his daughter and mother. The sandwiches are bread and cheap spread." Keanu pressed a hand to his face, overwhelmed. Here was a man working himself into the ground, giving everything for family, while never asking for a single thing in return. Keanu whispered, "Frank, find out exactly what they need. Doctors, specialists, equipment, therapy, all of it. I don't care what it costs." Frank hesitated. "Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, over the years. I don't care. Just get me the numbers." And with that, Keanu's plan was set. Friday evening, filming wrapped early. Keanu told Miguel he had other plans, asked him to take the night off. Miguel looked surprised but nodded gratefully. 15 minutes later, Keanu slipped into his old motorcycle, following Miguel's modest sedan through Los Angeles traffic. While Keanu's own route often led through gated communities and manicured boulevards, Miguel's took him into East LA, narrow streets, small apartment buildings, immigrant shops, neighborhoods worn by time and struggle. Miguel parked outside a faded complex, its paint peeling but its small garden filled with plastic flower pots, carefully tended. Keanu parked 2 blocks away and walked back, hiding in the shadows of a tree. He watched Miguel sit in his car for several minutes, shoulders slumped, head resting on the steering wheel. Finally, Miguel straightened, grabbed 2 grocery bags of generic brand essentials, and trudged up 3 flights of stairs, pausing twice from exhaustion. When the door opened, a weak but joyful voice called out, "Papa's home." Keanu froze. Miguel's entire demeanor changed. His voice softened. His face lit up. "Am I Corazon? Papa's here." From across the street, Keanu could see into the living room window. What he saw broke him. The small apartment had been transformed into a hospital ward. Machines hummed. Pill bottles lined tables. A hospital bed dominated the room. In it lay Sophia, her tiny body fragile, tubes and monitors surrounding her. Beside her sat Elena, frail in a wheelchair, half her body weakened by stroke. Miguel kissed his mother's forehead, then knelt beside his daughter, scooping her into his arms as though she were made of glass. "I drew you something, Papa," she whispered, pointing to a piece of paper. It was a stick figure holding hands with another figure next to a car. "Is this us?" Miguel asked, voice trembling. "Yes. And that's your car. You drive every day so we can have food and medicine." Miguel held her tight, tears glistening in his eyes. "Everything I do is for you and Abuela. You are my whole world." Keanu pressed his forehead to the rough bark of the tree, tears streaming silently. For the next hour, he watched Miguel transform into a one-man army, preparing medication, cooking a meager dinner, assisting his mother, reading Sophia a bedtime story about a brave knight. Exhausted, Miguel still summoned energy he didn't have, simply because his family needed it. Finally, after both were asleep, Miguel sat alone at the kitchen table, head in his hands. His shoulders shook with silent sobs. For just a few minutes, he allowed the weight of his world to crush him. Then, wiping his face, he straightened, preparing for another sleepless night. Keanu staggered back to his motorcycle. He had seen enough. By Monday morning, Keanu had barely slept, but his plan was in motion. Frank had lined up specialists, one of Europe's top pediatric neurosurgeons for Sophia, advanced stroke rehab for Elena, state-of-the-art equipment, and even accessible housing. The total? Over $200,000 in the first year, with ongoing costs after. "Do it all," Keanu said. "But Miguel can never know it's me. Set up a foundation. Make it real, with staff, a board, a website. Help other families, too. But here's the first." And so, within weeks, the Los Angeles Community Health Initiative was born. Miguel's family was selected through what appeared to be a rigorous process. Miguel, cautious, spent 3 days investigating before finally accepting the offer. Soon, Sophia was undergoing new treatments, her health improving. Elena began therapy that restored her speech and mobility. The family was moved into an accessible apartment near hospitals, all presented as part of the program. For the first time in years, Miguel smiled freely. He laughed. He spent evenings telling stories to his daughter instead of collapsing from exhaustion. 6 weeks later, Miguel nervously approached Keanu. "Mr. Reeves, could I ask a favor? The foundation is helping my family so much. They've suggested I cut back hours to spend more time with Sophia. They want a letter of recommendation from my employer. Would you?" Keanu swallowed hard. "Miguel, in 3 years you've never asked me for anything. You've been professional, reliable, respectful. But more than that, you're a man who works 3 jobs to care for his family, who sacrifices everything with dignity. Any organization would be lucky to have your voice." Miguel's eyes welled. "Thank you, sir. This means more than you know." 1 year later, Sophia had undergone surgery that changed her quality of life. She was in school, making friends. Elena was walking with assistance. Miguel himself looked years younger, finally able to sleep, finally able to live. He never knew Keanu was behind it all, and Keanu preferred it that way. On the anniversary of their entry into the foundation program, Miguel arrived with a small package. "My daughter asked me to give you this," he said shyly. Inside was a drawing, 2 men beside a car, both smiling. Underneath, in careful handwriting, "Thank you for being good to my father." Keanu held the drawing, eyes filling with tears. In that moment, he understood. Greatness wasn't about fame, or money, or even legendary roles. It was about compassion, about seeing those who struggle silently, and choosing to lift them up without expecting anything in return. The story of Miguel and his family became Keanu's most closely guarded secret. In a world obsessed with public gestures and headlines, he had discovered that the most meaningful victories happen quietly, witnessed only by those whose lives are transformed. This story reminds us that real heroes don't always appear on screen. Sometimes, they're behind the wheel, carrying silent burdens. And sometimes, the greatest kindness is the one done in silence.